All I'm saying is, I think you're being a bit unfair about this. Jaune sighed as the four of them marched down the corridor. Yang kept herself slightly behind the group as they moved, with Weiss in the lead and Blake to the left. Jaune slouched in the center, looking more tired than anyone had the right to be at 9:30 in the morning. Unfair? Weiss's eyes were narrow slits of ice. Unfair. I can't help but think you're the one being unfair when you did that in our shower. Do you have any idea how embarrassing it was to have to ask to use Team Ruben's bathroom? No. He answered. Because I didn't have to use it? You didn't either, to be honest. It still smells of peaches in there. Yang flicked the back of his head. Sure, that might have masked the scent of anything else. Thank God. But it was also a stark reminder of what had gone on in the previous night. There was no way she was going to put up with that while she was trying to wash her hair. Oh gods. What if she was reaching for the shampoo and... No, she couldn't think about it. You are henceforth banned from bringing women back to do that in our shower. Weiss declared with all the pomp of the Empress. This was one time in which Yang was more than willing to put up with the girl's arrogance. Even encourage it. This is sexism, you know. This isn't sexism. This is manners. Think of us next time you do something like that. No, now that would be impolite. He frowned and paused with a hand on each hip. When I'm with a woman, I categorically do not think of other women. I'm afraid that if you want me to think of you in the act, then you need to have He didn't get to finish, likely on account of Blake's elbow burying itself in his ribs. Weiss nodded in thanks, getting a returning one from the black-haired girl. Well, it was nice to see those two getting on. You are also banned from thinking about any of us in that way. Weiss smiled. And I still... He coughed. Say that... that isn't fair. I don't complain when I walk out of the bathroom and see Natasha masturbating. My name is Blake. The girl elbowed him again, not even having to ask which one of them he was referring to with the mistaken name. It actually took the anchor girl another 8 or 9 seconds to realize what she'd missed out. And I haven't even done that in our room. Nice pause. Yang glared. Shut up, you. Her partner growled. At least I don't steal my sister's shower for an entire half hour. It'd be a wonder if their team even has any hot water left. For shame. Jaune nodded, only to croak as he folded over Yang's fist. Owie. Daddy shouldn't be saying such cruel things about his daughter. The blonde simpered. She might get angry. Such a violent daughter. Any and all deviant activities such as those are banned from our room. Weiss decreed. Does anyone disagree with this? Jaune's hand rose. Anyone important, I mean. His hand didn't fall, but nor did Blake's or her own rise. It wasn't like she had planned to get up to anything like that, and even if she did find someone, their shared room was not where she was going to be experiencing her first time. Good. You know, I don't think we should refer to natural things like this as deviant. Jaune said, as responsible parents, we need to be accepting of daughter number 2's unusual taste. You don't get to use that as an excuse to not remember my name. And if she likes hardcore erotica, we need to accept that. Is that what's in those books? Yang grinned as she turned to the girl, who had gone very stiff and very white. Jaune had apparently known Blake's last book by name alone, and her reaction did seem to encourage it. Yang's grin widened to shit-eating proportions. Her partner was going to be hearing about this for a very long time. Who are you calling a parent? Weiss crossed her arms with a huff. If we repress her desires like this, then she might turn into an antisocial deviant. He held his hands up before his face in horror as he turned to look at the humiliated girl. Well, more antisocial than she already is. I'm antisocial? Blake rolled her eyes. I don't need that coming from you. See? See what our daughter's becoming? He gripped Weiss's shoulders, only to be roughly shaken off. She's already answering back to me. Next thing we know, she'll start hanging out with the wrong kind of people. Then she'll get into criminal activity and end up trying to blow up a train or something. Blake started in shock, while Yang just laughed. Stop with the infernal parent thing. Weiss scowled. I'm too young to be a mother to 2 teenage girls, even more so when I'm already feeling like I'm responsible for a 6-foot-tall baby. She glared at him as he scratched one cheek. Yang personally thought he missed a chance to ask if it was breastfeeding time, but giving Weiss's expression? Maybe that was self-preservation on his part. You know, where are we going anyway? Jaune asked. Yang grinned as she stepped a little closer behind him, as did Blake on the side. We have a free period this morning, so I thought we could all get some training. You promised us last night, remember? Weiss's smirk was vicious, and it only grew when his eyes widened in horror. He looked behind him, no doubt for an escape route, only to see Yang stood there. A quick look to the side, where Blake waited with crossed arms. Looked like he'd finally noticed their unusual formation, which was essentially 3 people escorting a prisoner. I left the oven on. Yang grabbed his collar before he could bolt. I turned it off. She grinned. I left my spine in the room. You can't leave what you don't have. Weiss cocked an eyebrow. I left Blake locked in the bathroom. I'm right here. A long pause followed by a sigh. I am Blake, by the way. Come on, fearless leader. Yang laughed as she dragged the boy behind her. It's time to work up that sweat you were so adamant about last night. It wasn't revenge. It was all about helping him. It was about doing what was right for him. Okay, it was totally about revenge. Why are we the only ones tired? Blake asked as she collapsed down beside her partner. The bond spared her a quick smile as she leaned back on the grass. The sun had been beating down on them for the last half hour or so, which hardly helped matters. Still, one could never tell under what circumstances you might have to face the grim, so it was worth the train, rain or shine. That didn't answer the question inside, however. Maybe he's secretly a badass? Yang said. Maybe he's repressed all his skills and experiences deep inside, and he's actually fitter than all of us. And now, it's finally shown as he can keep going long after we collapse. At least he's got that going for him. Blake glared at the grinning girl. I'd be inclined to believe that, if you were actually running at all. Her golden eyes traced over to the racing track, where she could quite clearly see the bastard strolling nonchalantly around the other end. Weiss stood at the finish line, panting slightly, but with an expression that could only be called, murderous. Much like he had for the last 2 laps, he suddenly began to stagger and slouch on the home stretch, passing them with great heavy pants as he half jogged, half fell across the finish line, collapsed at Weiss's feet. He begged for water. Another lap. The girl snarled. Oh, why? He rose to his feet with a sigh and strolled on again, looking as fresh as he had over an hour ago. I hate him so much. Blake seethed. I've never hated this person as much as I hate him. It's easy to hate him in a situation like this. Her partner sighed. Blake made a sound argument, even if she didn't really mean it. Yang misunderstood, and perhaps that was for the best, because in any situation she could ever have been in, Blake hated Jaune. He knew. That dirty, lying, Worse than a schnee asshole knew. Blew up a train indeed. And she dared to let her guard down around him. That would have to change. If it ever could. He had blackmail material all over her, as much as he didn't seem keen to use it. He was probably too lazy even for that. What was she supposed to do about it? It wasn't like she could get rid of him, and even if she were willing to throw everything away and commit cold-blooded murder, everyone would notice his absence. Unless... Blake's eyes narrowed as she watched him ooze around the course, as she watched Weiss slowly begin to boil. She could not get rid of him, but if someone else were to do so, then she wouldn't be in any trouble at all, would she? No, not like Adam. She hurried to convince herself. Not murder, never that. But if she could highlight how bad he was, if she could get him in the attention of the teachers, well, it was hardly her fault if he got expelled, was it? Can I do that though? She wondered. Could she honestly sabotage a person's career like that? More than that, could she sabotage the people of Remnant by robbing them of someone who might one day save their lives? But I don't want to run. He whined, before letting out a quick yelp as Weiss charged at him with her weapon. Well, what do you know? It looked like he could run pretty fast when the motivation was there. Yes, she could. Blake sighed. It would be a damn service she would be performing to the people of Vale. She could just imagine a city on fire and looking him over it before turning with a serious expression to the awaiting citizen. What city? I don't see a city. Maybe we're all imagining it. Maybe I'm imagining it. I'm going to go to sleep against this tree and see if I wake up from this dream. He gave hunters a bad name. He gave people a bad name. If he didn't want to take being a hunter seriously, then he didn't deserve to be a beacon. That's a mighty serious expression you're wearing there, partner. Yang had apparently noticed her inner musing. Should I be worried? Don't be silly, said Blake. I'm just thinking about the book he ruined. You know, you can get another book. Yang apparently didn't understand the majestics of the man with two souls, and she wasn't going to waste time trying to convince her. I'm sure there's an adult store somewhere in Vale. Ha 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 ha. Good one. Blake pronounced the words slowly, letting the sarcasm seep through. There was nothing wrong with mature romance. It was grittier and more realistic than usual, something she needed to get by. Once you lived a life like hers, the idealistic tales of childhood years soon ceased to have any meaning. The blonde paused, wondering what to really say. You don't really like our team, do you? Blake glanced down at her, trying to catch the emotion behind those words. Yang's face was neutral, however, giving nothing away. Blake glanced away for a moment. Was that what she thought? It was true that she'd been distant, mostly out of fear of him revealing her secret. But she hadn't meant to make them think that. I don't hate it. She sighed. It's not what I imagined, but it isn't all bad. As out as you are, you're not half bad. When you're not making puns, anyway. Yang grinned and stuck her tongue out. The snee? She's a bit annoying though, but I think I can get used to it. She's honestly not as bad as I expected. Though maybe that was because all the girls' Ari had been focused on their final teammate. And Jaune? Her partner just had to prompt that. Of course she would. It wasn't like anyone would have missed that she left him out. How was she to say this diplomatically? Hey guys! Saved by the cavalry. Yang turned round on her seat to wave at her sister. Team of four nodded a quick greeting to Blake, He returned it with a vague attempt at a smile. It wasn't like they ever talked to her, or vice versa. She was always happiest on the outskirts. And thankfully, Yang was personable enough to like the opposite. Their partnership was good like that. Oh wow, the young leader whispered. He's actually training. I'm kinda surprised. How'd you manage to get through to him then? Yang and Blake looked back, just in time to see their leader stagger mid-run, arms pumping as he tried to keep ahead of Weiss's rapier. Sure. Yang grinned. Let's go with that. You never did explain why you needed to use that shower this morning. Ren said. Is that going to be a regular thing? It better not be a regular thing. Yang whispered. But, let's just say it was a plumbing disaster. That was one way of putting it. Blake had noticed the smell as soon as she entered, and it had been taken but a minute to place it as woman's perfume. She'd always kind of assumed everyone else made light of his charm to be active with other women. She had known otherwise, of course, and now, sadly, they did too. I assume it has something to do with him. Pyrrha nodded towards Jaune. Well... Yang edged. You would assume correct. Blake ignored Yang's sideward look. It's best not to ask for specifics. Let them think he clogged the toilets or something. It was hardly her problem. She'd just been thankful that she didn't walk in on it all. I'm sure he didn't mean it. Ruby cheered, with all the idealistic obliviousness Blake had come to expect from her. It can't be easy being led by someone like him. Pyrrha said. Ruby looked uncertain, like she wasn't sure if she could defend him or worry whether Pyrrha thought the same of her. Perhaps it was her experience at noticing things in the background. But Blake couldn't help but pay attention as Nora sighed. She looked upset, even as her silent partner reached over to pat her back. Now that she thought about it, he had said something about Jaune and childhood. Perhaps there was a story there. Are the two of you doing okay? It's not that bad. Yang was quick to leap to their leader's protection, a fact that made Blake sigh. Why was it that Yang seemed so determined to defend him so? Blake was sure she wasn't imagining that, and as far as she could tell, he hadn't done anything to actually help Yang in any way. Was she doing all this for her little sister, who'd made friends with Jaune? Sure, he's lazy and irresponsible, but it doesn't make him a bad person. His apathy hardly helps matters though. Pyrrha said. He doesn't seem to care about his peers. He doesn't seem to care about training. The question becomes, what does he care about? But he did help that girl. Ruby's voice was quiet. He did help her. Pyrrha agreed. And I never said that was bad. Even if he made Yang do it, it was still the right thing to do. But that doesn't change the fact that his attitude could use some adjustment. He didn't help her because he wanted to. He helped her because he wanted to get us off his back. That's not exactly an admirable trait for the future protector of mankind. Blake couldn't have said it better herself. Sure, she'd been glad that the poor girl had been able to escape the ruckus, and yes, she wanted nothing more than to go over there and beat the snot out of the man herself. But that didn't excuse him for what he'd said about the faunus, or as Pyrrha said, his general lack of caring for people at all. How far did that extend? Did he even care for them? I don't want to see Yang die because our leader didn't care enough to help her. She didn't want to lose anyone to something so callous. Apathy was what had left the faunus abused and mistreated. The frustrating thing had always been that the majority of people didn't actually hate or mistreat faunus. They just didn't say anything when others did. They just looked sadly on and thought, well, at least it's not me. Before walking on as yet another Faunus was beaten in the street by racist thugs. He hadn't done anything like that, but in some way, he reminded her of it. Come on, guys. Yang fidgeted. He's not that bad. I'm sure once he gets to know us, he'll open up. Yeah. Ruby was quick to agree. I think we're judging too quickly here. I like him. He's a good listener. Blake sighed, even as every other person there felt the need to look away. She wondered if they all shared the same mental image as her, of Jaune and Ruby, sat against the wall. While the younger girl chatted and yapped away, Jaune would sit there in silence, listening to it all, even as Ruby proclaimed him the best friend ever and ran off. There he would slide down the wall, fast asleep. I'm sure he's a good listener, Pyrrha said, with the kind of caution care one might use when trying to explain that Santa totally existed. And I didn't mean to make it sound like I was trying to say who or who you can't be friends with. That would make me a terrible partner. The redhead smiled, earning a relieved sigh from Ruby. Maybe you're right. Maybe we'll learn to accept him when we get to know him a little better. I'm only saying, what I feel now, I could easily be wrong. That was well said. Much more diplomatic than anything she could have come up with. Maybe that was the girl's experience in press conferences talking. No more, please. The subject of their conversation collapsed in front of the group. Harsh pants dragged from his lungs. It definitely looked a little more real this time, especially the sweat covering his back. He looked sick. Please, no more. There. Weiss nodded, clearly pleased with herself despite how badly her red face clashed with the white clothing. More than getting him to actually exercise, Blake was more impressed that the heiress still had the steam for running after how much they'd done earlier. Why is it that she has to be annoying and go ruin my expectations like that? A Snee is supposed to be fat, lazy, and cruel. Weiss could be aggravating at times, but you couldn't call her cruel. Well, not unless your name was Jaune, in which case the description was probably spot on. Maybe that was what had given her the energy. Blake couldn't help but think she might be able to find her second win if Jaune was at the end of Grumble Show. Great job, Jaune. Ruby cheered. It seemed even he couldn't argue with the innocent joy in that voice, as he simply grumbled something into the grass rather than tell her where she could shove that enthusiasm. Blake had to admit, she did feel a little better now that he was suffering as well.